Hi everyone, this is Leatherass for StoxPoker.com. Today I'm going to be playing two tables of 5-10 no limit on PokerStars, and we're going to start off with a 7-9 offsuit. We have a limper. He's somewhat short. I think this is probably not the best spot to isolate just because of his stack size. I would prefer to isolate someone with a little bit more of a deeper stack, so I have more room to leverage my stack and my position against him. With him being kind of a shorter stack, I tend to isolate less and just push for value more against those types of opponents. So both these tables are a little bit on life support. I'm going to have to definitely keep my eyes open for a couple of other tables as well. For some reason today there are a lot of short stacks at the tables, and I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible because that's just not going to make for a very interesting video. On the screen on the right, this guy Hal Horn 68 sits in. He sits in with less than a buy-in. He's a new opponent. I'm going to immediately just tag him. I just put like an F or a couple Fs for fish, but that doesn't necessarily mean fish. It means to me just someone I feel like I have a pretty substantial edge on. 7-10 suited, I think we can go ahead and open this profitably on this particular table where players are less aggressive. If you have tough blinds and buttons to worry about, opening a hand like 7-10 suit is definitely not going to be profitable. Maybe there's a few players in the world that are good enough to show a profit with it, but I'm not going to put myself as one of them. That's for sure. So I think it's an okay open against this particular table, which I think is on the weak side. So Hal Horn, we don't know anything about. Like I said, he sat in with less than a full buy-in, he's a new opponent. So my guess is he's not a particularly good player, and I don't know what that means. And my hand is pretty weak. It's two pair, but it's no reason to think it's going to be best into all those opponents. With the raise, ace-4 is just garbage. On the left, ace-4, I'm just trying to win the money, and then hopefully take it down with a continuation bet if not. My guess is that I'm going to take it down pre-flop a lot, and if not, the continuation bet is going to win the pot plenty often enough to make that play profitable. This particular player with a 50 VPIP, 61 is the fold to flop bet number. So obviously the continuation bet is going to work plenty often enough to show a profit. Anybody that folds over 50%, you're going to show a profit with on most boards just by c-betting. With the king-8 suited, this is going to be definitely good enough for me to open small blind to big blind. And so sometimes sometimes I make it 3 times, sometimes 4 times the big blind. I don't really know if there's a rhyme or reason to it. I just kind of mix it up, I suppose. 7 deuce, we know what to do with that hand. You didn't need to get on a video to watch that, I don't imagine. This player Tom's on sits, and I think that was definitely a bad replacement for the guy I think was probably pretty weak player that was in there before. I think Tom's on is, I think he's certainly a profitable player. I've been playing with him for a long time, and he seems to be like a multi-tabler that more than likely wins some money. So to what extent, I don't know, but I do know that he's definitely a good player. The king-queen offsuit, Well, in earlier position, I like to, as a rule, just raise 3 times the big blind. Not always. It kind of depends on the table, and if there's a really bad player that calls a lot, I'll make it more because I want to play bigger pots with him. And I would probably be more apt to make it more of the big hand because a hand that I want to try to get in as much money as possible. 4-6 is probably not the best to open there, and on this board I'm not going to continuation bet against a short stack, and someone here who is probably just going to call with a wide range, and me being out of position against him is going to leave me in a pretty hopeless spot. So with all this action going, it's an easy fold. So he goes with bottom pair, and I guess it was good. Even though the flush got there, he had bottom pair also. But I don't think he was folding that. So I'm pretty happy with my fold, or with my decision not to bet on the flop. So ace king, definitely a bigger hand than it might be at smaller limits because you can actually get a lot of money in the pot in decent shape. So I think re-raising here is pretty much the only play out of position. I don't really see any reason to just call, and I will be willing to get it all in if he wants. So a pretty awesome flop in the sense that there's not much I'm behind, but not awesome in the sense that it's very unlikely that he's going to call or put more action in because he's unlikely to have anything. So what I'm going to do is take a more passive line and basically be willing to check call off my stack, and if he hits a 2-outer on me, it's a 2-outer on me, or if I'm already beat, I'm already beat. But I'm going to check call and make it look like I have a hand like 9s or 10s, and he seems reasonably aggressive, so I opted to take that route. Now what I'm going to do is make a little bet and maybe again try to represent something like 9s or 10s or something like that. And now on the river, Jack comes. He quickly called. He could have a hand like Jacks himself, but I think I should just go for a little more value here. And if he does shove, I'm going to have to call, and I'm just going to go for a tiny, like half pot bet. The possibility exists he could have picked up something like a flush draw or something on the turn and interprets my bet as being weak and thinks that a river shove will get me off my hand. And so I was going to have to call if I was shoved on there. It's a little bit of an interesting line I took, but the reason, a lot of people will just bet call, and that's good too because it balances your play with the times that you're re-raising him with suited connectors and want to definitely bluff that kind of flop because it's a flop that's unlikely to have hit him. But my play's okay too because I like to take that line sometimes with 10s and jacks, and I want them to know that that doesn't always mean 10s and jacks for me and they can just budge me off the hand. That means that I could be more or less trapping them like I was with the ace-king. And so it balances that too. So I basically just take all kinds of different lines. I mean, sometimes I'll weak lead on a flop like that, try to induce, plays, or sometimes I'll just bet normal and hope he has like king 10 and wants to put all his money in. There's just lots of different ways to play it. And, I think ultimately just balancing your play is really important because, I should say, like in general, I think balancing your play is overvalued because most people do not play against the same people all the time, and most people are not at high limits against good players who are observing all these things. But I think balancing becomes much more important against the opponents you play against every day. And this is a little bit of the reason why I think tags can sometimes get a little bit of a hard time, and sometimes people are just like, oh, he's just a tag or blah blah blah, as if lag is the ultimate way to go. Lag is certainly a good style as well, and a lot of people are very successful with it. But you can win a lot of money off lags by just taking lines just like I did, and you watch them, they just bluff their whole stack off like every single time. And that particular player wasn't really aggressive, but there's a lot of guys who absolutely could not help themselves, and they're going to bluff all the way to the river on a pot like that. So, playing a little trappy and just kind of playing your opponent is often a good way to go. And again, finding that balance, because I could be taking that check call route to trap them, and shoot, sometimes I'll trap them with queens there. I'm just going to put them on not a king, basically, and I'm just going to check call off my stack with queens. Just basically, it has to be a type of hand that is not susceptible to getting sucked out on. So on a board like that, queens really only fears an ace, and it is a little bit unlikely for them to have an ace because, ace-king, well, first of all, already has you beat. The only other aces they're probably calling with, is like ace-queen and ace-jack. I don't think guys are calling with like, ace-7 or anything. So there's just not very many hands you are worried about getting sucked out on. With the ace-9, let me top off here on the screen on the right. With the ace-9 hand on the 3-flush board against people who don't fold, I chose not to get involved there. I wanted to finish off what I felt to be more important point, and I didn't get to talk about that hand, but I feel like with the ace-9 that it just wasn't strong enough to really continue into two people, especially ones that don't fold. So I'm going to go ahead and isolate him with the 9-6 suited here. Again, nobody that's hyper aggressive behind me, which is why I can make more of these types of plays. If I start getting guys that are 25, 22s and more laggish numbers, I don't usually get involved as often in these type of things. I'll still isolate some, but I'm not going to sit there and do it the whole time, because they will fight back. And Tom Zahn is re-raising me, and a lot of times he's going to have a hand just like mine here, but in a 4-bet is not a horrible play because he's not going to have a hand too often himself, and I feel like I can make that play right now, and that would be okay too. But I think just give him credit. We don't have a lot of history right now. He's not a overly loose player, so he's a pretty solid tag, 18-15. So we'll just give him credit. It didn't work that time, and that's just the way it goes. With the ace-9 here, what I'm going to do, just because you get check raised on a lot of these types of boards, sometimes with hands you beat, like 7-8, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is just take a little more of a passive line. I was going to check, and I was going to call a turn bet, and then fold to a river bet. So now this is not a horrible option to raise here because it's a decent card to bluff at. But if I call, that should probably instill a little bit of fear from him, and I could very easily have the best hand. So at the 10-3, this hand's so junky that I think I'm just going to check and see a flop. The ace-9 here, I put in a call, and that call has to look scary to him, and I can easily have a hand like king-queen, ace-king to him. So I think he's betting for value for the most part, and I don't think I'm going to push him off the hand often enough to really be profitable by raising. So and with the 10-3 here, he hasn't shown any aggression. He doesn't look like he wants the pot, so I'll just take it. Um, 8-9 off, not much of a hand. So we can just junk that. And with the Jack-2 off, same sort of deal. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled. I'm a little worried about the table on the left falling apart because of the short stack, and now there's no real fish at the table, and I could very easily see them losing interest in playing that table and moving on to another table. So I think I'm actually just going to take the initiative and find a new table, and I found one with a pretty decent dynamic, I think. So we'll just go ahead and replace that. Alright, so King Queen. The stack side's really awkward. I don't really want to get it in with King Queen here. I can't really re-raise him and fold. So it's pretty close, and I think what I'm going to do is call and check raise as long as I have overcards or make a pair or a draw or something. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to check raise all in and hope for the best. Alright, so at the ace-3 suited, just going to go ahead and isolate him up. And this is the type of flop where I really don't know if I'm going to profitably continuation bet into him. So I'm going to check, and hopefully he gives me a free card, but we'll see. This is just, there's just so many hands that this hits, and so I'm going to just try to get to showdown. I may think about calling the turn, but probably not. And queens I'll just re-raise for value. Decent card to bluff at, but I probably have showdown value here, so I'm just going to check, and now he does bet. So, I mean, I would think all the other holdings he would have bet on the turn. So, I mean, I could consider, the flush draw, everything. I mean, this could easily be, a type of hand he's bluffing with too, with the king. So I'm tempted to make the ace-high call. Yeah, I think it might be. With a little more information, I think it may have been a decent call. I think, given my lack of information on him, I think it was maybe a decent fold. I guess some numbers just popped in, so he is a little aggressive, his aggression being a 4, and so that the likelihood of a bluff goes up a little bit there. So who knows? 8-9, I'm just going to raise. And we're going to go ahead and mark this guy as soft. And the reason I'm marking him soft is just because of his stack size. I don't, he's clearly not a short stacker per se. He's not a full stacker, and usually anybody in between is not a good player. So with the ace-8 here, I'm just going to isolate him. This time I get to I get to be in position, so it should make the decisions a little bit easier. Mixed feelings on this flop. I mean, I do have a gut shot to the nuts, and the board is scary, but at the same time, if he's limping with any Broadway cards, he's not going anywhere because he's going to at least have a straight draw and a pair. So, but we're going to hope for a small pair or a suited connector and just still make a continuation bet. My guess is between the times I hit the gut shot and the times he has those cards, my continuation bet will work often enough to show a profit. So, luckily enough, it looks like he was on a suited connector pocket pair type of hand. It is kind of nice to be able to just play a couple tables and sort of take in all the action a little bit more and really get a good solid feel for the flow of the game and the emotions people might have based on a bad beat or something like that. I normally play 10 tables and I don't get to take all that stuff in, but it doesn't mean so much that it would, for my game, that it would be worth to be able to observe that, it wouldn't be worth it to drop tables because, I still have a pretty good win rate playing a bunch. So, but it is, I will admit, it is nice to be able to play a little more real poker, I guess you could say, and really making a lot of more creative and plays and good reads and so forth. With the ace queen, I'm just going to make it 145. If he shoves, I'm going to be sick to my stomach, but I may just get it in with him. And the reason why is that I could see him reshoving some junk just because this looks so much like a squeeze. And I can see him shoving a lot of hands, definitely a pocket pair or, even a hand like king, queen, or ace, jack. So ace, queen probably good enough to get it in considering the money in the pot and the likelihood that he is, that you're actually in decent shape. So with the ace queen here, it's tempting to take a little more of a passive line like I did with the ace king hand when I flopped the king. But at the same time, I can go to value town this guy. If he has a hand like ace 10, I don't think he's ever folding. So I'm just going to bet about 2/3 the pot, and he insta-folded. And, and a lot of the reason why check calling is good, or check raising or something like that, check raising might be a pretty sexy move there, because you could probably get all the money if he does have an ace, and you can also get a bet out of a suited connector type of hand. And a bet when the pot is that big is pretty substantial. It's close. It's pretty close, I suppose. Maybe looking back, maybe I acted a little too quickly there, and maybe I like check raising a little bit better, just because if I thought he was aggressive enough to where he might try to bluff all three streets, then I like check calling down more. But considering he's sort of a payoff wizard, he's kind of a mix. He's a little aggressive, but he's kind of a payoff wizard type of guy. So I'm kind of torn between just kind of check calling off and hopefully he bluffs every street, or check raising and just trying to get huge value out of a weaker ace. But it's just so much of his range once he cold calls and then calls the button is suited connector, small pair type of hands. So, by betting out, that probably wasn't the best option. But, I guess you live and you learn. Ace king suited here. I think what I'm going to do is just make a smallish bet right around half pot. Sorry about that. What I was going to say is just make more of a smallish bet there, just because he doesn't fold that much, but it's a little weak to just check fold. And you're getting a good price on your bluff, if you want to call it a bluff, with the ace king on, after whiffing the flop. You're getting a good price to take it down right there if you bet half pot, because half pot, it only needs to work, I guess, like around 1/3 of the time or something. So I can't imagine it wouldn't work that often. And so this player is, I'm going to take away the weak symbol from him. I got some stats kick in. I just had never seen him before, so I usually just mark them as weak instantly because, unless they're a new player to the site that came from another site and is like a pro from another site, their new player generally equals not a good player. So, but now his numbers have kicked in. He just looks like a big-time nit. So, I mean, obviously it's a small sample size, but he definitely hasn't been very active, and I can't imagine that it'll turn out that he was a loose aggressive player after the way he's played. So, he just looks like a very nitty player. So the edge is obviously still going to be pretty decent that we're going to have over him, but not substantial enough to label him as a weakish player. There's some guys that I have marked as weakish players that are actually pretty good winners, and it's just because they play so poorly against me. They're just absolute ATMs. I mean, because there's some people that just, I don't know, they just don't adjust to certain types of opponents, and but they do a good job at taking money from um, everyone else. So basically, that's my only criteria for marking someone as a weakish player. It's just, for me, if I have substantial edge over them, then I mark them that way. I mean, there are probably guys out there. I know there's a few guys that they give me a lot of trouble at the tables, and they're just good players. They probably have me marked as a weakish player when I play them. Who knows? I mean, they just there's some that they really have a good read on certain people. So if you know exactly how someone plays and how someone thinks, and especially if that person doesn't balance their play particularly well, then you can basically turn anybody into a fish if with that kind of read. I mean, I guess Phil Ivey's a fish if I can play him with his cards turned over. So King 4 against the short stack. I don't think it's going to be profitable to just open basically any two cards because I just don't think he folds often enough. I mean, I guess I could min raise, and we'll toss it in there. We'll min raise him and see what he does. So I mean, it's pretty close, I guess, if you min raise. If you make it 20, you're risking, I guess, 15 more to win 15 in the pot. So yeah, I guess maybe min raising can almost never be bad. It doesn't need to work more than half the time. I mean, there's some players that will never let you steal with a min raise, but I knew that this type of player would. So I don't know if min raising in that spot could really ever be bad. And with the pocket threes, I think the plan for this hand will be to just call. Try to take him to value town if you flop a 3. And if the short stacker squeezes or shoves all in, I guess it would be, then I guess I'll just have to call him with $100 dead money in the pot, and he's only raising me 160 more. If Pachuno, or however you say that name is, if he squeezes, I'm just going to have to be done. I don't think anybody's going to be squeezing this guy without a real hand, just because he doesn't fold. And very easy fold at 3s. So it'll be interesting to see what he let out with here. If leading out means big draw, big hand. Looks like I'm going to put X10 on queens. And yeah, okay, he was basically leading out with the nuts. Which is kind of an interesting play. Okay, so he had 9-10. So he was drawing dead. That was a really good situation for Pachuno. And I'm actually going to get on a different table because he's gone and this game's just going to totally fall apart. So there's no point in me posting the blind I'm just going to post it and people are going to leave as I'm as we're playing. So there's just no reason for anyone to be here now. So off to another table. A little bit of a choppy video, but this is more or less just kind of keeping it real. I mean, this is how it is at higher stakes games. There's usually only one reason to be at the table, and once that reason is gone, then there's not a whole lot of reason to be there. The ace-9 off is raise, and I get called pretty predictably by the 76 VPIP. I'm worried in the meantime. I'm thinking about getting on his left, because that would obviously be a great situation. But I'm worried that during the time it goes 3-handed, these other guys might leave, or the other guy might kind of notice it as being kind of as being sort of obvious that I'm doing that, and he may get upset and leave. So I'm just going to hang in there. Ace-9, this wasn't the type of board, this is the type of board with lots of draws on it, and I didn't feel like continuation betting into two people was going to be profitable. And now that I'm led into with, ace-high, it's a very easy fold. Okay, and so with the 6-10, I'd like to squeeze it up, but I don't think this guy folds very often, so I don't think it's really profitable to do it with such a junky hand. So I'll probably check call with the 6-10, not 60 bucks though. So we'll let him have it. I could lead, but then you get called by draws and you're out of position, and I want to make it look like I have like a weaker jack, and maybe he thinks he can't push me off of it. And so I prefer to check call rather than bet out. And with the king-10, I'm getting a pretty good price here to call. I don't really want to squeeze because the cleaner, he knows what I'm up to. And so, I'm going to get shoved on a lot light. And, suited Broadway is a good hand to get involved with, especially when you have a weaker player in the hand. So we flop an open-ender, and so this is a pretty interesting spot. We could play it fast. We could play it kind of slow and just kind of check call. I think checking, if cleaner checks Yona's bets, I think just trying to get all the money in with Yona's is not really trying to get all the money, but kind of semi-bluffing him is probably the best option. And with the ace-king here, I'm just going to continuation bet. Just hope he ditches, his king-queen or his pocket fours or whatever. So yeah, with 600 bucks, he makes 80, and I make it like, 270 or something, and then I'll just call a shove. I'll probably make it a little bigger because I don't want him to call. It's going to be a weird spot on the turn. So I'll just make it a little bigger, and he knows he's in fold or shove mode. And so we're going to get it in here and hope for the best. All right. We got there big time on the river, made the stone cold nuts. So he had top pair and just sort of went with it, which is not bad, I guess. I don't know. I might have folded there if I were him. But I guess he did have the over to the overcard, or I should say an overcard, and he also had a gut shot to the straight. So I guess with I could be up to something often enough there for him to profitably shove, but it's definitely very close for him because I'm going to have a set there a lot too. So he's going to be in really bad shape, and I'm going to have a made straight a lot too. Basically it's one of those situations where he's going to be a slight favorite like he was, or he's going to be in really bad shape. So I don't have Poker Stove in front of me, and I'm not really such a great guy to ask questions for math-wise, but I'm gonna go out on a limb a little bit and say I'm almost certain that's negative EV for him to push that queen jack, but it's certainly not terrible. And with a decent read or against certain types of opponents, it can definitely be correct. And so it's 5-9, easy fold there. It's only 10 bucks. That's an attitude a lot of people will take, and it's only 10 bucks until you flop a 9, and you get yourself in trouble when he has a bigger pair or something. So, and I think with the 3-6 suited, I'm just going to limp in, which is something I almost never do. And we flopped a pretty big hand, and we'll just try to value bet it the whole way. And with the 5-6 here, I'll just make a little raise and hope to steal. And so I'm going to try to get the bets pretty big, close to pot. Just try to do that all three streets, but looks like he didn't have a whole lot. If he'd have raised me, I don't know what I would have done. So running pretty good so far in this video. Up about a buy-in, I think, maybe a little more. I guess we left that other tables around 13. I guess we've been on, is this our fourth table? I don't know. I'm not sure. We're up more than a buy-in. I know that. So happy about that. It's nice when you make a video. You know, usually making a video is somewhat of a thing where, you know, had I played 10 tables at the time, I would have had my normal win rate. So when you make, you know, theoretically, I guess my EV would be much higher than, you know, making a 25-50 cent video and hoping to get lucky and win $50. But it's always nice, you know, I mean, the video's not over, so I could lose it all back, but it's nice when you can make a video and still get paid. I remember I had that stretch where I lost every video. I think I lost a dozen in a row, 15 in a row. I don't know. It was astronomical. And now I seem to be on a good streak of winning a bunch in a row, so that's always nice. This is pretty close here because it's such a board that is just so unlikely to not have much, and I can pick up like a 9 or a jack or a 10 and have a hand to get pretty excited about. And I think I am going to continuation bet, even into the guy that calls too much and this other guy. And I'm going to mark him as a weakish player. Just because it's the type of board that they're just not going to have much too often. And so, obviously it didn't work, but, you know, other good things can happen too. Like I can check here, get a free card, then a 10 rolls off on the river and I value bet it. Stuff like that. So, I'm not going to double barrel this guy, especially not on a board or on the bottom board card pairing. So now I have to fold. And then the other thing too is that just because he calls and just because you don't hit a jack or a 10 or a 9 to give you an open ender on the turn doesn't mean that the hand's over. You know, if a king or an ace rolls off, you know, even against the calling station, he's probably not going to call with like his pair of fives, you know, the whole way. So you have opportunity to bluff him out later as well. So I think it was profitable. And king 10 here, that's actually not a standard open for me. I often just muck, but I guess I got getting a little frisky here. I got all excited about being up money, I suppose. This is the type of board I can't imagine not continuation betting, but my gosh, the guy just, man, he doesn't fold. I don't know. Maybe I should check. I could check raise him. Then he really pretty much has to have a queen. Maybe that's what I'll do. If he checks, then we get a free card. If Rocky's mom checks again now, I'll bet. And I'll make it big. Because I don't want them to draw to something or call me with ace high. So I'm going to bet close to pot. And just try to take it down right here. And I've got to imagine the king's an out. And so, you know, that was my logic there, was just to make a larger bet. Because, you know, you put in $50 and they might just call you with ace jack or something like that. I want to make a big bet and make it look like maybe I was slow playing something. And so that's what I went for. As Rocky's mom checks twice, you know, he clearly is not interested in the pot. And Manamons or whatever, he had his opportunity and he didn't take it. So I wanted to, I figure I might as well get in there. And that's just the sort of attention you need to give every pot, because, you know, there's just a lot of ways to play certain situations. You know, when I have a queen there, I check raise a lot as well, because I know they can't have much, and I know my continuation bet is going to work so often. I want to get money from them and not scare them away. And so with the deuce 3, this is just junk, so we're going to get rid of that. And with the 6-10 off, it's the same thing. This is pretty tempting here, but Monomons is, you know, it's not that great of a hand, and Monomons is not folding, so I guess I could limp, but I don't know, I just don't do that a whole lot, so you know, if it was suited, I certainly would have at least limped, but with offsuit, I chose to just get rid of the hand. So far, nothing special. I don't think that, you know, I'm playing like super tag or super lag or anything like that. I just trying to make good decisions as they arise, and that gets the money. It really does. You know, you don't need to be an animal. You don't need to sit around and wait for sets, but just anytime you see an opportunity to make some money, just take it. And I'm seeing an opportunity right here, and I'm going to try and take it. I'm going to make it 75 and hope that I get folds all around. So we don't get a fold, but we get a call, and now I flop a flush draw. So I think the best thing to do is just pot it and call a shove. I could, you know, if he had a bigger stack, I might get fancy and try to check raise it, but you know, now I'm just going to have to call and just hope to suck out, and I don't get there. So you know, sometimes if the guy has like has less of a stack or more of a stack, I'll go for the check raise there because I'm going to hope he has like a hand like eights and thinks that, you know, that I'm on overs and wants to protect his hand, makes his bet. I check raise him and he can't call, and so that's a lot of times a good option. But when the stack's that big, I'd rather just apply the maximum pressure on him and just shove, basically, or you know, commit myself. And so that's what I went for there. And the ace-2 off, that's a muck for me in the cutoff, especially when the button's very likely to call and I'm going to have to play the hand out of position. So I hit one draw, missed one draw. That's pretty standard. You know, unfortunate to lose to the bad player, this 48 with the half stack, but you know, you're not always going to bust the fish every time, so sometimes they make you the fish, and he did there with my Jack 7. These are really good tables, by the way. It's not always as good at 5-10. I mean, I wish I could say it was, but a lot of times it's just a bunch of tough players and one guy that's truthfully not always horrible. But, you know, sometimes you get lucky and there's a bunch of players that don't really play all that well, and that's kind of what we have here with the 50 VPIP. We had the other guy leave that was weak, and the guy that busted me who's not very good either. So, you know, obviously his call of $65 pre-flop with, you know, king, queen off is not the best, but, you know, that's what they do, and a little bit unfortunate. It's basically flopped a cooler situation where, you know, flush draw, he makes top pair, but it is what it is. The ace-9 off, we've seen him kind of do this min-raise stuff. I don't really think it, you know, a lot of times that means a lot to a weakish player. That can mean like aces, but, you know, with him I'm hoping it doesn't mean much, and just going to try to steal there, but looks like he has a little something, and we're going to have to get very lucky with a flop, or just hope that, you know, hope to take it down some way, because this is not a great situation, because now even when the ace flops, it's going to be very hard with the pot size to get away from it, and it could definitely set up a situation where I stack off to a bigger ace. So the cleaner gets in there too. I'm putting him on a suited connector, pocket pair type of hand. Tempting to bet 300 and hope nobody has anything, but I think it's best to just give up on this charade. And with the king-9 suited, it's one of those boards, like I said, really dry. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and make a bet and hope nobody has anything, but man-a-man's predictably calls, and the ace-9 I'm going to give up on. And so now the question is, do I double barrel him? I got an ace on the turn, which is nice. But, I mean, does he even fold a queen here? I don't know. And he could have a hand like ace-3 something like that that had a gut shot. So we're going to raise it up again with the ace-queen. So I'm going to give up. There's a chance he has like sevens, and now if I make a 9 it could be good. And with the ace-queen here, I'm just going to shove. He only has a pot-sized bet left, and he snap calls, and not sure what that means. Okay, well, I guess I would call if I were him too with that. But luckily I had the bigger kicker there. And so he's really grinding on this one. I don't know what that means from him. I mean, I see, you know, he could, I mean, obviously I have to fold, but I just don't know what this could mean. I mean, I guess he probably did peel with a hand like ace-2, ace-5, something like that on the turn, probably made 2 pair. I can't imagine there's really no missed draws, so it wasn't like he was like bluff shoving or anything. Or bluff, making a big bluff, I guess I meant to say. So he definitely had a hand there, in my opinion anyway. You know, he hasn't shown signs of being overly aggressive either. So I think we're going to wrap it up though, otherwise this video is going to get too long and could possibly have some issues with the recording software. And sometimes the recording doesn't go through if it goes over a certain length of time, and we're approaching that time right now. So I'm just going to finish out these last hand or two on the screen on the right and call it a video. But guys, please do get involved in the forums. Please do, just in general, but for this video as well, you know, ask me questions. You know, whatever sort of questions you may have, I'll be happy to answer them in the thread that will be dedicated to this video. So in the meantime, we'll just watch these guys play out their last hand or two and call it a video. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take care.